Welcome back everybody to the channel. It's Chrissy Sawyer here with a very special guest. And you'll have heard me talk the other day about, I gave two shout outs the other day, one to beautiful Ruba and the other one to Mike DePong, who's an old mate of mine. And Mike has been moving so deeply into his inner shaman for a while now that I couldn't resist inviting him to come and natter. We're going to start with the divergence and what's happening. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Mike DePong. Ta-da! So,
Hello, Chrissy, and all
oh,
of the listeners. And I feel like I'm part of the family. I feel like I know some of you because of the comments that you've made on Chrissy's videos. So it's really cool to be here and to all be together. I
oh,
appreciate that very much.
you're so welcome.
Um, you mentioned one thing about me, like being drawn into, and that's the way it is, kind of drawn into shamanic work. Um, I I had no idea what I was doing. I knew I've been for years sensitive to being to avoiding being culturally inappropriate. It turns out, I found out that I'm 1% indigenous here from a tribe here in the United States, which is kind of funny because I've always had this passion. One of the first times I was ever passionate about anything was when in high school I read the book Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by Dee Brown, which we may come back to at some point here when we talk about the collective and the divergence in the collective. But I read that and I became so enraged, and for several days I went around half kidding, half not, kill the white man. But it just affected me so profoundly because it didn't only speak about indigenous peoples, Native Americans, but it also spoke about the hatred that was involved there. And my point is this: I was motivated then. I was so drawn into the indigenous ways of dealing with nature, and I'd always been tender to nature ever since I've been a child. All the crystals that I have, the stones, they're little. They're not like nice big honking crystals. They are small. They're ones that were gifted to me as a child, that I found, that I discovered in a South St. Louis neighborhood that was in a full city block of apartment complexes. I still would give these, and I have them all these decades later. But as 10 years ago, I really got into doing the sorts of things I'm doing and exploring, discovering self, and looking into and knowing that there were these two polarities of ego and heart. I, I just followed my heart in terms of practice, in terms of reading, in terms of listening. And I started doing things. And a few years ago, as I read, I was just put onto a few other links. I had no idea I was doing the same kinds of things that these people who are true shamans do. And I don't even need to list myself as that or categorize myself as that, but I certainly am, as you introduced me, Chrissy. I'm sensitive to nature, to the expressions of spirit and nature in all things, in the crystals, in the rocks, in the trees. The birds especially have been something that have been special to me. And so they speak. The spirits speak from those things, and they give us instruction just like you get from the cards, Chrissy. As I see it as just other ways of channeling the energies of spirit to instruct us, because the spirits want us to know peace. They want us to know excitement and thrill with all of this creation. And
Wow.
that brings us back to the collective. There's not a lot of excitement and thrill in the collective like could be.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I resisted the urge there to interrupt you and say, you're such a beautiful human being. And so I just felt into the wanting to say that. And so it might become clear, but you're showing me something that's hurting my heart. And it's going to bring something through. So full disclosure, I might just take myself into process and I'll be fine, but I'm really curious to, yeah. Okay, so there's a really big guide that's with you, and he's going to work through you, big behind you, and he's going to work through you. My heart is nervous. Okay, so
Oh,
something might get seen in this that I haven't even seen. And also, disclosure, I have literally just finished uploading a 45-minute video on the teen rising into the queen. And it was a beautiful reading. And I watched it back and I went into process, and this big, cold energy came into me, and I really welcomed another dimension of my inner teenager. It was such a beautiful process.
hmm,
So I'm still moving through it. I absolutely trust the timing of this. And I'm really hearing Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It's making me feel quite emotional. Um, if I can share a story about that book, 100 years ago, when I was connecting with my roots and I was doing some regression, I did a couple of past life regressions. And that connected me to my First Nation tribe, which are the Lakotans. And I did a lot of work with the Lakotans there. They are coming to greet me now. Oh,
please.
gosh. When they show themselves, there's a river. So there's grass on this side, and I'm standing on this side. There's this river, there's a bit of grass, and then huge trees, and they all come through the trees like a whole village comes to greet me. So it's a wee bit moving. Um, so I connected with my Lakota tribe and did loads of work, learned so much about medicine, nature medicine. And then I watched a film. I think there's a film, this was so long ago, called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which tore me apart. And then mysteriously, the book came to me. And it was really interesting because I ordered the book. I prefer to buy used books than new because I like the smell and I like them a bit tatty, and I like when people scribble in the margin. Um, and I bought this book, and it actually came out of an old American library. Isn't that interesting? And I gave the book away to a soldier that I worked with a few years later who had ancestral connections with me. We have fought together. An amazing man. And I wrapped the book up, and we were going to a party at his house, and I took the book to him. And he started to open it. I said, "You might want to wait." And he couldn't wait. And he opened the book, and tears just started. So I knew I'd done the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I have a strong ancestral connection to the whole story. I know how I was killed. I was a child, a Lakota child, who was killed by the Redcoats, and yeah, bayoneted and hunted like a dog, and bayoneted. So I do have strong connections. Most of them are healed now, and the wounding has passed, but the love is still there. The love is so abundant, beautiful. So I'm so grateful that you brought that in, Mike.
Well, I was thinking about it more, especially the last few days this week, because on Sunday we visited a place here in southern Missouri called the Trail of Tears State Park. And it was the one stop along the way of the forced Indian removal in 1838. And it was there that this connects all with the idea of the collective and uh, injustices. I can't get away from that, at least to think about the injustices, but how the uh, laws were made, and they sounded all very noble, but they weren't. They were all ego charged, and the collective energies to now in the history of humanity have been energized of ego. And ego says, I need, I need, I need. I need recognition. I need wealth. I need power. I need control. And uh, these white settlers came to this country, to this land, and they found people who didn't need, they lived in balance with all that was. And that created this disharmony that the white ego energized settlers couldn't do. And I won't say this about indigenous peoples. We all have ego and heart. And it's not like one's good and one's bad. It's just like, okay, which energy are we going to choose individually? Which energies do we wish to engage in? Are we going to enjoy the fruits of higher life energies or the uh, results of lower life energies? And that was same was true for indigenous peoples. However, uh, in the collective sense, indigenous people knew how to live in balance with Mother Earth and with nature, and could read the elements and valued people for their abilities and for their connection with nature. In the white European settlers, all they connected with was wealth, power, control as a whole. The laws were made. And so then somebody like this general by the name of Winfield Scott, who most people wouldn't know here, but he came in and he said, well, you Cherokee people, we have these laws and I want this to be easy for you. And he sounded very noble, but he wasn't. What he was doing was just still egotistically soft soaping, soft pedaling this whole thing about, we're forcing you out because we want the gold that's on this land. And so there were over 15,000 Cherokee and other indigenous tribes that were forced to move from the eastern coast of the United States to the Oklahoma Territory. And here in Missouri was one of the stops along the way where there was a big separation because of the weather and crossing the Mississippi River. And they had to wait for months until the passage could be, and thousands upon thousands of them died along the way. And I felt that very deeply. When I was there, I thought I might connect with some ancestral spirits, but I didn't. All I felt was confusion and despair and hopelessness, and it was crushing. But then I thought about it as I processed it, and Spirit helped me process in subsequent days the, um, that grief that was felt just showed, and what has happened since then has showed me that the past can't be just the past. There are many people who say that was all in the past. We're not like that anymore. We give people their, we've passed laws of equity and equality. No, in some ways we have, but not really, because it's the same way as it was with this Winfield Scott. The laws were passed and like, okay, I'm going to try to do this in a kind way before we just start killing you. Please leave. And that attitude is no different today. This should be Earth Day today. Earth Day is being celebrated today. The headline should be that in the United States, all it is are the racial injustices and sorrows. So you talk about collective divergence. At least I see now that these things are making headlines and that decisions and changes are being made that says to me, there are more individuals that are coming to recognize their own heart, their own innate divinity, and their power and the peace that is possible there. But the more individuals come to that point, the more that will spill over into the collective, the more that will, I won't even say spill over, the more that will characterize the collective. And, but it was interesting to me that what was happening then is still happening now. We'd like to think we've made so much progress. In some ways, we really haven't. We won't until enough individuals confront themselves with who and what they really are. And they see the value of that.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, Mike, is, I repeatedly say ad nauseum, we have to build the cathedral within. And you quite rightly say, we reach tipping point when many people do their inner work, heal their hurts, realign themselves in their truth, and that is what is creating the tipping point. Because, from a DNA point of view, when I do energetic work on myself, I heal the whole ancestral line through my DNA, all the way back to the beginning of my lineage. Now, if 1 million people did that, that's a collective. And I know that at least 1 million people are doing that. 1 billion people are doing that. There are so many people now. Oh, that's lovely. I'm seeing this kind of bell curve of those that started then are now uh, expert enough in dancing with their shadow that it's like this suction. They're pulling newbies up into the curve of people who are just daring to meet their shadow, and or even at the point where, I have shadow. So there's this lovely, it's momentum. That's what I'm trying to describe. We're gathering
Yes. Yes.
momentum. So, and as we build it within, it is an inevitability of physics that it will be built without.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
By the way, I love it when you are in the middle of something and spirits communicate with you and you just stop and pause and listen. That's
Oh,
that's wonderful.
thank
I,
you.
and it's and it's not to flatter you, but I can't tell you how many times, and I think I've indicated that in my responses to your videos, that the energy does land with me. It is just what I need at the time,
Hmm.
and this I think today is the same sort of thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So, talk to me about what you're seeing in a divergent field. What's happening?
Well, I see the sorts of things that we mentioned. Um, I see that people have not confronted that in the collective, there is a general expression of lower life energies.
Hmm.
And I know, like you've said these things before, it's not a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of people choosing ugliness
Mm.
and hurtfulness, and they don't realize, so many people who talk about uh, law and order, and we're going to force people to do things our way. And what they're saying is, like happened, like I mentioned, in the 19th century here with indigenous peoples. As long as they think like us and act like us, even though they don't look like us, they're good people.
Mm.
Um, and but what people who do that don't realize is the damage they're doing to themselves, what they're missing out on,
Yeah.
what they don't see. And I see this expression in the collective, I see this confusion. And people who I think are moving towards self-realization, towards knowing their own hearts. And I did one of your and that you talked about the other day. Uh, but they feel the same confusion. They feel this confusion that, uh, stopping myself from that,
Mm.
like you did, they feel confusion that drives them into, I hope, either heart or ego, but many are looking towards heart because it's not a natural state for us. We chose to come here to experience diversity. And I think when we come to that point and realize that we appreciate ourselves, first of all, we have to appreciate who and what we are. And then we realize, hey, that's what everybody else is. The only thing, everybody's spirit, is incarnate spirit. And that's a base. But then there's a flavor given to that spirit, a characteristic, a quality. Chrissy Sawyer is one expression. Mike Dupont is another expression. But it's spirit. We came here to know that unity with one another, the unity with Mother Earth, with nature, with everything, because we were co-creators.
Mm.
And we chose, we wanted to come here to experience what we created. But the very fact of coming here to me indicated that we had to have ego because we were going to be together and because we were going to have physical bodies that had to survive. And ego is very effective and functional for that.
Mm.
But then we have to come back to the point of, why did I come here? Well, then I need to evaluate, process, filter, respond, and act based on heart, based on heart spirit, heart self, and not ego. So take ego for what it is and choose heart for why we really came here to live,
Mm.
to be. And when that and that confusion, until individuals come to recognize that for themselves, it does create confusion in the collective. And to me, that's part of what I see is this huge, especially here in the United States. Um, there are people, and I have friends, close personal friends, who are like, hey, I wasn't a slave owner. That's not part of me. Well, the effects and the consequences of that, of slavery, haven't gone away. And the systems that put that in place, and then that made sure that stayed in place through Jim Crow laws and those sorts of things, the systemic racism that was built into the system,
Mm.
um, it hasn't gone away. So we can't divest ourselves of responsibility in terms of not acknowledging that these things exist because of the past. We can't just dispose of the past. It doesn't happen. And so in the collective, for us, the best thing to me that I can ever talk with anybody about is look into a mirror, look behind your eyes, and find that heart energy, that self, why you came here. Because until we start creating and know your own power and peace, because until you realize that, until I realize that I have power, because I recognize that I am divinity, that I have this wonderful opportunity to process all of this creation in magnificent ways, and that I can have peace because of that. And because and then I recognize, hey, I'm human too. I'm a man, and so I can't, I can't expect that I'm just like God, like the Christian concept of God overall, see all. No, no, I get to experience in a much cooler way, as far as I'm concerned. Uh, and ego, again, has its function and it can tell us, and ego can make us feel superior or inferior. That's all ego. Either everybody's better than me or I'm better than everybody. No, it's a matter of I'm me. And as when people start recognizing that, then these conflicts in the collective will be addressed in wonderful ways that we wanted to come here to experience. I don't think the conflicts are causes of sorrow. The conflicts today, to me and the collective, are issues that bear us awakening to self. They call us to that, these conflicts. And as more people do that, that's when the collective is going to change. But the reality is, again, to just smooth things over with laws from the 1964 Civil Rights Act here in the US and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. That was like, okay, that's nice, that's good. But guess what? That didn't happen. The 1954 Supreme Court decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, that was supposed to be, oh, we're making equality in the schools. But that didn't happen. And the last 5 years here in the United States, with the political situation the way it was, just brought out this wonderful divergence that there is among people. And I say wonderful because now we get to deal with the real issues, and the laws can't deal with those things. They help, but they can't deal with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I really heard when you said something like racism is programmed into the system, And I just saw this willful perpetuation of division and strife as being a mindful act, a willful act by those who imagine they have power.
Mhm.
And they have no power, because real power does not bow to insecurity ever.
No.
Power is power. It rises up and it shines. And what I also felt come in was one of the energies that came out in my other video today, was this insidious, devious trickster energy, the lip service of all of these policies that are put in place and never really acted upon or activated. They're so patronizing to the beauty of a human being. And then I just see Pluto in Capricorn, and it's like, oh, this shit's gonna come down. Like, it's coming down. It's coming down. And when as the structures fall, and they are, the monetary system globally is in meltdown, which I think is all part of the plan. And I'm not going to go into that. But to sit here as a witness to the systems that are being dissolved is a very great thing. It fills me with hope. And
It does. I have that same hope that, again, and that's part of the value I see of this divergence in the collective, is that it is making not only us as a collective face these issues, but turning individuals to themselves. And you mentioned one thing. You mentioned the ego. Uh, uh, those who are in power, who imagine themselves to be in power, they do have power in the sense of those who think like them
they have
will
oppression.
follow. Yes, and that's exactly what it is. It's oppression. And I, I, I do distinguish in my mind and from my own ability to process life and what goes on, because I do sense a lot of energies, and I have to have some way to deal with it. And in ways, I see a distinction between those who have said, I know what I'm about. I know heart. I know this one part of me, but I am choosing ego. I am choosing the lower life energies. I'm choosing, and those are the kinds of people that I think I don't want to have. That's why I engage in in the voting process, because I get to choose. I want to choose, at least express in the spiritual realm, that I want to choose those who care about higher life frequencies, higher energies of life. And I think that there's this distinction between those who purposefully choose. It makes me think of the biblical thing with Pharaoh at the time of Exodus, that he hardened his heart. He wouldn't let people go. He wanted to maintain oppression. It was a conscious choice. He knew he had a choice. And he said, no, I'm not going to go for freedom and for higher life energies. I'm hardening my heart. And that's the sort of thing today that is being brought to light. And I think it's a good thing. Like you said, it gives hope.
Yeah, it really does. And yeah, it is being exposed. And if we track back just over the last 5 years to the big stories that have come out that have exposed corruption and trickery and abuse of power, imagined power, that, as horrible and traumatic as that has been for those involved, I do have this little gleeful smile inside that really lends hope to, because I was talking to somebody the other day, Mike, and I found myself saying something like, it was a what if conversation. Some of my favorite conversations are what if, because they just go cosmic. And what if? And I said, what if So I was talking about the higher heart. So the higher heart is innocence and purity. So this is the innocent child. This is the innocent creative. And there's no real hard blueprints in this energy. It's just pure creation. And we were talking about this, and I said, what if, when we decided to incarnate, we came here without the manual, without the guidebook, with no guides. We were just children running, innocent children running around on this ball of rock called Earth. And what if, in our naivety, we reached a long way into shadow to test the extent of our darkness and our cruelty and our wickedness? And what if we got really embedded in that matter? Because as dense as we can be, we can go the equal and opposite into light and energy. And I was shown this vision a couple of days ago of how nature creates, and she creates in circles, never in straight lines, always in circles. And I was shown cosmic dust and how it forms, and it comes in and then it starts to reach down. It's funny, I've just glanced up and I can see the moon in daylight. It's beautiful. And it comes down, it starts to drop into matter. And then they showed me it drilling down, this cosmic light drilling down into matter, and it went down, like all the way down. And then this voice, masculine voice, said, so you see, the darker and denser the matter, the more light it can hold.
Mm.
Wow.
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 Yeah.
So I'm going to bring Lucifer in. I'm going for it. I'm going to bring Lucifer in because Lucifer, the name, as you know, means light bringer, light bearer. And the Luciferian part of us is so humble. It's the humble part of us that carries the shadow without complaining. It's like the container for the shadow self. And it's really, really beautiful. One of the best workshops I ever did this was years ago. I did a series of angel workshops. It's when I was studying crystals. And we were going to work with Lucifer, the light bearer. And I was totally curious, just willing to play like a child. So we go into group meditation and then we're led through Vision Quest. And my vision, I can remember it now, was the most passionate, loving energy. He was so warm. And I found myself in this old Victorian kitchen with a giant range across the whole of the back wall, big fire burning, quarry tiled floor. And he said, sit with me. And we both sat on this quarry tile floor. And he went like that and he laid out half a deck of cards and he said, now then, what about these cards? And I'd started to make a deck of cards, which 100 years later I still haven't done. And I just sat there in my kind of embarrassment that, yeah, I started it and I didn't finish. And I know that's my modus operandi. I start and I don't finish. We had this big conversation about, can you see it through? What is stopping you from seeing it through? So he was a guide and a mentor, such a beautiful energy. But it's the thing we're terrified of. Why are we terrified? Well, could it be religion? Could it possibly be the demonization of this beautiful, deep, dark? I'll carry that for you. It's very humble and very powerful. I'll carry that for you, but it will poison you. I will carry that for you. That's how I met that energy. Powerful, like warrior monk energy. So, and you can park beside him the sacred feminine. And, you know, I'm sure, I don't know, have you ever read Eros Denied?
I have not, no.
It's such a powerful book. Now that made me angry. And it talks about religious iconography and how it kind of started with the masculine and the feminine. And then it kind of went like this. He got taller, she got smaller. And then she was sitting and he was standing. And then she was kneeling and he was standing. Then she disappeared. And that's happened over an age. So that's the deletion of the sacred feminine as an equal counterpart to the masculine within to build the church within. The cathedral gets built within by balancing the masculine and the feminine. But yes, so part of the masculine, the shadow masculine, the beautiful shadow masculine, who serves. I don't know what that means. He serves the feminine without being beholden to her. What do you make of that? He serves the feminine without being beholden to her. Ah, there's no contract, it's willing. Beholden denotes a contract of some sort. If I am beholden to you, it's like I owe you a debt. There is no debt, there is no sales ledger. He serves the feminine without being beholden to her. He does it because he wants to. I think I just re-identified how I see Lucifer as the sacred masculine. I'm going to play with that and see what happens.
I think you should, and I think it would be really interesting. So I'll just bring this in that I've been thinking about the past few days. Again, all stemming off of in my ADD mind that makes connections, that sees things everywhere, and then it comes out and it seems jumbled. But it is all connected to my thoughts concerning the collective and indigenous peoples and things. But I've been thinking about, and even you mentioned it in one of your videos, about religion and about the the Christian concept of Lucifer, that he's this fallen angel because he dared to what? To challenge God, to be like God. He was God. He was the same. There was equivalency. And the ones who had the power, who took that power and chose not to process it through heart energy, but rather through ego. They made that into evil. They made that into, and I thought those who choose to live in ego and that creates oppression, who choose that purposefully, they're their own fallen angel. They don't understand that energy, that power. They're their own, in their terms, wickedness or evil or rebellious, and all things that, in a way, I see as valuable. But they become that to themselves. And what you're talking about here is really beautiful. The light bearer. Ego is afraid of light. Ego doesn't want light because it doesn't want to be exposed for what it is. It doesn't want to, it's afraid. I think ego in each of us individually fears losing the function that it has, that is a rightful function, but it doesn't know when to stop. And that's why we have to choose when it stops, and why we have to choose light. But it can't stand the light bearer part of us, heart. And there is that balance, the divine feminine and masculine. And it is beautiful and necessary. And it's one of the things that we, as incarnate spirit, we get to explore. And it creates all these wonderful challenges and issues that we have the ability to have the answers to within, and for ourselves, and that again affects the collective.
I love that. So what I was seeing while you were talking into that was as we incarnate spirit, beautiful sentence, as we incarnate spirit. And it's like, I don't know how many people are aware that when they write one at a time, because I've gone all Gemini. So when we're incarnating spirit, okay, let's call it cosmic force, we're pulling from all over the cosmos, all over the cosmos. So, and religion knows this. So the religion puts God outside of me, outside and up here. Okay. What does that do? Well, that subjugates me because I've got to look up, which means I'm on my knees. I'm smaller than. No, I am God.
Yes.
I am God. And however much or little of God, source, divine, I want to embody and integrate is absolutely up to me. I have the power. Everybody has the power to bring it home.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yes. It's interesting that you said that. I'm going all Gemini. The other night, I looked up as I was doing my ceremony, and I saw the moon. I saw her there, right in the middle of the Gemini constellation.
Oh,
And it just hit me. And I'm not an astronomer nor an astrologer. And so I don't know how often that happens. I don't sit and watch the sky all night long every night. But to me, that was, again, the way spirit works and the way my heart accessing all that is and the unity with all that is, was that I needed that. That was that was power to me. That was energy to me. And part of it is that what I have needed over the course of my life are the things that you speak about so frequently, Chrissy, the divine feminine.
mm,
That is what I identify with. And that's what I've chosen
mm,
that I will create from.
mm.
I needed that balance. And the divine masculine, I need that. I've realized that in the past few months, how much I need that to for the functioning, for the doing of it, for the outworking of it, for laying it out there. But the creative energy and the character of the energy that I share in my, whether it's through my writing or through these new few videos that I've done so far, um, is from the goddess.
Mm.
And that's where I've chosen. And in fact, and I won't go into detail, but in one of my journeys into the other world with my guides, um, I was led through a forest and through the forest, and I was given a choice facing upwards. I was levitated amongst by my four guides, and I had a choice as they let me this. I could see up through, and was it the sun coming down on me or the, the moon, goddess? And I knew then, they said, it's your choice, it's your choice, it's your choice. And I knew what I needed. And they flipped me over in the air, and I felt the goddess come down and rest on my back and tell me, it's your choice, but I will be with you. The other night I looked up and there was the moon right in the middle of Gemini. So just massive, massive power, energy. Yes.
You can't make this up, can you?
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Wow. God, a beautiful journey. Wow.
So that's when I look at it, what you said just captured me there from that we all have these abilities to access this amazing energy because we are God. We are divinity. Now, it's a matter of cutting through the ego, accepting the ego for what it is, but then putting it in its place to choose the place of our divinity and to recognize these things, to see these things, connect with these things, to give us power and peace. And as I've heard, and I know you're familiar with Jonathan and Zara, but Jonathan Horowitz and Zara Waldenbeck, but to maintain that the sense of we're always going through change. We're always could be kept off kilter, which is what the oppressors want to do is to keep us off kilter. But we can know through these kinds of energies and accessing them through processing life through heart, through our divinity, that we can know balance through change, that
Mhm.
we can stay balanced through all of the change. Doesn't mean we stop. It doesn't mean we resist change. We acknowledge and say it's all changing, but we maintain balance when we maintain our relationship with all that is and with heart.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I love that because one of my friends who's a really powerful healer, she's, I'm always correct. She's quite proper, and I'm always correcting clients. Balance is not symmetry. And it's
That's
like I totally understand. I totally understand that. In any given day, it could be 60% shit and 40% ooh la la. But when you add up 365 days and take the mean average, then you'll see where the balance point is. Yeah, I love that. Finding balance through change. And it's like, yeah, and
yeah,
just with the real vaccine is joy. Hmm.
it absolutely is.
Hmm. Kept on a constant diet of fear, that's the
Yes.
fear. I did some research once into the physical effects of fear, and fear does some amazing things to the body. It actually shrinks the cell. Okay, now this could open up a whole field here, but I'm going to tread carefully on the outside of it because if what scientists are telling me is true, then my cells are 99% empty, right? How can I do this and not dissolve? Okay. So fear comes in and fear shrinks the cell so that our ability to hold photonic light is greatly diminished. It also pulls in cortisol and adrenaline, which overstimulates the fight flight response, keeps us in reptilian brain.
Mm-hmm.
And over a great period of time, becomes the Bible to some people. I see, yeah, I'm giving myself to be spiteful and wicked here, but I see people driving cars wearing masks, and I'm like, ugh, there are no words. Are you afraid of yourself alone in your car? Is your fear that dominant in your life that you are afraid of yourself? It's powerful. It's a
It,
genius plan.
it is powerful. And again, it's the choice that we each have to make. How
Mhm.
are we going to process all of this? How are we going to relate? How do we choose to live? And
Yeah.
it's going to be, do we want to experience lower life energies? I mean, in all the um, inspirational movies and books and poems and plays, it's always like it's about love and joy and reconciliation, which is something you talk about. That's what we need is the reconciliation. But those are the things we come to live for. I always think of the movie Dead Poet Society.
Well,
Are you? I don't know if yeah. So I mean, it was one that was very powerful for me because when I was taught in the classroom, um, that was my introduction for the students into romanticism. And one of the lines that Mr. Keating Robin Williams has is, "Hey, engineering, law, doctors, uh, those are those are means to provide a living. But what we really come here to live is love and peace and joy and all these. That's why we come here. So why choose? Why choose fear? Why allow ego? Because ego says, well, that's a useful tool because I can keep us safe. I can keep us and I can keep us safe by avoiding pain. I can keep us safe by making myself superior. I can keep us safe by making myself inferior. But no, we choose heart and we accept the fear, we accept the challenges, the conflicts, and we can meet them with joy, even though they're challenges and conflicts are here. One of the things, I'll share this with you quickly, and I don't know how much time you want to take here, but I will share this with you quickly because it's come to me very strongly in the past couple of weeks. And I know I've spoken with you about it personally before, but my parents were were affected by alcoholism. And I speak to my mom and dad every single night because they are I've given thanks to them for their love and bringing me into this world and giving me life and taking care of me. And also that they're a portal, that they're my access to the ancestors. And but one of the things that I've come to very strongly and significantly, and it was part of a deep healing for me, was I am so grateful for every experience I had, for all the things that I hated when I was a child in some ways that I wanted to fix, for all the things that created codependency in me. I am so grateful for it all. It was a gift because I understand now. I can relate more to the collective. I can relate more to individuals. I understand the processes that are going on, and I know that each of us has that within us, that divinity within us, to see that big picture and to know that we have the ability to bring joy into any situation, to bring our own power and peace into any situation. And my mom and dad gave me gifts that are immeasurable. And I am so grateful for it in love. And what they didn't do things, they didn't choose ego and say, we're going to make my child's life miserable.
Mm-mm.
They had their own struggles, they had their own things. Uh, um, they bordered on so many times. I look back and I see the expressions of heart in my mom and dad. But there were some things that they just couldn't, that the fear, that ego fear kept them and said, hey, I have to cope some way. And the way they coped was drinking. But that there was so much more that they gave me that I'm just so grateful for that.
That's beautiful. I want to bake a cake for ego because it's feeling quite tired. The that constant, am I better than, am I worse than, how do I take care of me today? Yeah, I remember one of the wisest things I ever did in starting this decades long journey into myself
Mm-hmm.
was I connected with my ego and I took its hand and I said, it's going to be a ride. Walk with me and I will walk with you and let's support one another. And yeah, it kind of became friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So that,
Exactly.
yeah, so that I'm more able to challenge myself. And, I too grew up in a war zone, a literal war zone. And without that, how on earth can I do the work that I do in the world? What would I have to draw from? Because divinity won't do it. Divinity won't do it. Material experience will do it. Yeah, with
Yeah.
empathy and divinity. But we can't live here and be old new age la la. It isn't about that. Love and light, toxic positivity. I can't be doing with that shit. Get real, because sometimes you're a fucking mess and I love you all the same. That to me is a greater reality. That to me is learning to live with diversity. You are
Yes.
really pissing me off right now and I fucking love you. And we're not there yet. We're getting there. We can't get there until we've done that work within. You're pissing me off today, and you're pissing me off today. And if we can't get through that and transcend that and transmute that into, oh, it turns out I love you. You're a pain in the ass, but I love you.
That's so, I mean, and that's what you said something about the ego is just so tired. I sensed with my ego as I faced some of these things, and this has happened several times over the years. Um, it's almost like right in here, right in here. The ego's like, finally, thank you. I couldn't keep holding this up any longer.
Wow.
And it's like there can, and it's like it all does work together. And you're right. We it is that's why we have ego, to be here, so we can be here in this world and face these things and explore and discover and know all that. And ego will help us through it, but ego is like, I don't have to do it all. And so you start filtering through heart, and you do heal in love and light, but you don't use that as an excuse. That's just another ego play. To
Exactly.
Yes, it's just another ego play. Oh, because ego's strong. We needed it.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
ego, oh, okay, I'll take that love and light shit, and I'll make it into something really helpful for us. No, you said you wanted to rest. That's just right. You've shown me enough for today. Let me do this. Yeah.
It's brilliant. Oh, Mike, this has been such a joy. I'm going to leave them wanting more and wrap
Okay.
it up around the hour mark. But I would love to come back to this and just open the field up again and see where it goes. Are you game?
Anytime, anytime. You just let me know.
Right.
Um, because again, I value the things that you bring up. I mean, it's part of the reality of processing life through heart. That the things that you need, that the things that you want to know, I won't even say need, but the things that you desire to know, the things that you desire to experience, those energies are just brought together. And so many times that your videos just dovetail so beautifully and perfectly with the things that my own spirits and that my own heart are guiding me towards, and I'm considering. So anytime you just say the word.
Right. That's a bargain. So, people, thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, subscribe. You will see this video turn up on Mike's channel if he wants to publish it. I'll send it to you via web transfer. And it's Mike DePong is the YouTube channel. Spirit on the Hill.
Spirit Hill.
Healing in love and light. Beautiful. Uh, it's been fantastic. And do you want to leave our viewers with a few well-chosen words?
Yes, I want to say that because of this energy that we've spoken of, those of you who are listening, those of you who respond, I have sensed your presence here. Whether it's in the future or not, I have sensed your presence here. And it makes all the difference that there is this fellowship. And that word fellowship to me is a beautiful expression, that there's this engagement with one another that encourages, that produces its own, like its own little sun, its own light and power and peace. So thank you all for being here.
Fantastic. Take care, Mike. Much love. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Chrissy. Thank you.
I'll see you
Thank you
soon.
for the invitation. Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.